Hello, good morning, everyone. Good morning in Singapore or wherever you are and are watching this at a later stage, potentially. We've got a super exciting topic today. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about intimacy. Let's talk about getting back to a normal sex life. Let's get back to being intimate with each other again after having a baby. And I know that a lot of us struggle with that. It is not easy. To me, it is something like, use it or lose it. And sometimes we get sort of stuck in this rut of being so overwhelmed with our baby, being so touched out as well, that we're like, stay away from me, not interested. And of course, sex is a very important part of a relationship. So we mustn't let the spark extinguish. So I've invited Dr. Angela Tan, and she's a physician, a medical doctor, and also a sexual wellness specialist. Is that what you call yourself?
Yes, I do that.
Perfect. And she has a lovely clinic in Chuchiat that I was able to visit a few weeks back. And I'm super excited to have you, Dr. Angela. Really, really lovely for you to join us this morning.
So it's definitely an honor to be invited here on this platform. Because as a 6-year-old mom, I'm still struggling how to get intimacy back into where it was. Um, when you're still dating, but I realized, I can't turn time back. So what I've looked into instead is, how do I then accept my new normal?
Yes.
Right. So hello everyone that's online and who's watching the video. So my name is Angela. Okay, I'm a trained family doctor and I kind of like venture into this whole arena or sexual wellness because like no one seems to be doing it right on the professional front. So when I was doing my work as a GP, I have this 80-year-old man. They came in asking for Viagra and I was like, whoa, what do I do with that? Right. And then I have, postpartum couples who say like, our gynecologist has cleared out for sex, but how do we begin? I'm like, would you just start?
Yeah.
Right. And then I have perimenopausal or menopausal women coming in to tell me the struggles they have in the bedroom, their relationships, and I was totally clueless.
Yeah.
Right? And because of all this question that I had, and it made me start to search what are the answers for this? What are those things that I ought to know, but it wasn't taught, in my textbooks.
Yeah.
So that got me started searching and got me trained up in the whole arena of sexual wellness and things like that. And then with my recent, postpartum experience, I struggled with blues, with breastfeeding, with in-laws, with confinement and nanny, anything that, most women go through. So this is more of a sharing session of, of what I've learned along the way and the different things that I learned from other people as well. So I hope it'll be beautiful. It'll be, something that you can apply to your lives as well, right? Yes, so here I go. Okay, along the way, for those of us who are online, feel free to drop your questions in the chat. I'll answer them as we go along. So I'll
Okay,
just
perfect.
start.
I will consider that. And then you also, I mean, this is very much, if we can make this a very lively session where all of us chime in and you sort of share your experiences as well or your questions, that would be even more awesome. I love this. I see many mummies have joined us already. So let's get started, Angela. Share your presentation, which
Sure.
we said earlier is just an anchoring point. This is very much open to us discussing things together.
Yeah, so here we go. Right. Okay, so it's the next chapter of our life. Like I said, I've learned that it's never going to be the same. So actually, there's a very interesting study where they show like the frequency or sex or sex satisfaction level after the delivery of a child. So it kind of like within the first year, it goes all the way rock bottom,
Hmm.
right? And it slowly comes back up after the first year when things start to stabilize. And it starts to kind of normalize after the kids goes to primary school. Okay. And it starts to surge up, interestingly, is when the kids goes to college.
Okay.
Right. So that's kind of the trajectory we are looking at.
Yeah, but that is interesting because kids going to college, that's when many of us hit perimenopause and
Yes.
so on. And then we have different challenges, as you were saying.
But that is also when where women because by then the career kind of stabilize,
Hmm.
right? And it's kind of like you make the choice like I want to revive who I am as a woman. I want to reflect on who I am in this world. And the confidence we have in ourselves kind of changed. Like, when we were 20s, we were very worried about showing our midriff, or the flabby arms.
Yeah.
Once you hit your 40s and 50s, you go like, I am who I am. This is me. I'm embracing my body. So that's how it shifts things again. It's very interesting, right? How that was. Anyway, postpartum.
Let's go back to that.
Right. Okay. So I've come up with a few top challenges that I feel that most mummies have. One is exhaustion and touch fatigue. Like after breastfeeding for a whole entire day, you really don't want to be touched again, right? It, I remember there was a time that I was just on the sofa because my baby is one of those that I can't put her down, and if I do put her down, she'll be screaming nonstop. Yeah, so she was always there on my body. Okay. So one of the things is that, partners do feel rejected and they're unsure how to help, right? So what the body actually needs is a moment to be ours again. So we kind of have to, I'm going to talk about the different things that we can do to kind of handle it, right? To get there. Okay, but I'm just going to go through the challenges first. Okay, the second one, the identity shifts with the new roles, right? So, people think that once a baby comes out, like motherhood just happens. But then there's a lot of internal shift that is not quite there yet. We start getting concerned now that, I have a full-time caregiver. What about my career and the ambitions that I have? What about my body changes? How I'm going to get back in shape again, right? So all this kinds of cloud the whole mother's head as well, right? And then the partner, right? Father tends to feel a little bit helpless at the start because, they're not breastfeeding. They My husband, I don't know, he can't seem to calm the baby down. So whenever I have a shower, it's always a quick rush. Because in the 5 minutes that I'm showering, the baby will be screaming all the time, right? So it took my husband quite a while, to get the hang of actually how to handle a newborn, right? And then sometimes there's role imbalance that comes up. Like one person may feel that, I'm doing more of this, okay? And then I'm doing more of this, right? So one of the things that in the early days when my husband and I quarreled, it was about like, because in the past we don't have a helper, so household used to be like split 50-50.
Yeah.
When the baby came along, it seems like he's doing all the housework and I'm just abandoning housework to him, right? And he got upset. It's like, why don't you take care of our house anymore? Isn't this our house? Right? I'm like, housework can wait, whereas the baby can't. So, the mental load that I'm having, you don't understand. So we started quarreling about, our different mental loads that we
Yeah.
have, right? So it took a while for us to figure out that balance again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then the third one is communication challenges. So when we are like in that tense situation, especially the first few months, with the newborn, a lot of communications happens, but it's very logistically focused,
Yeah.
right? And that's how the emotions starts to distant apart because you don't quite understand what each other is going through. Like we are both struggling with our own emotions that way. And unknowingly, tension builds up. And when little things happen, it feels really huge because both of us are just stretched thin, right? And we're like, you don't used to be so unreasonable. What's wrong with you, right? And then it just gets worse from there. Yeah. Okay. Of course, there's mismatched intimacy expectations. Um, so the timing of what is right, it doesn't coincide that often anymore when both of us are stretched thin, right? There's also physical discomfort, especially postpartum. The breast is leaky, the hormones are going haywire, the vagina feels dry. It can be very challenging, right? And then sometimes husbands, they don't ask because they're afraid that it will burden the wives. Okay, then when the husband don't ask, the wife also feel like, is there something wrong with me? Am I not attractive anymore? Or like, the guilt of not being able to pleasure our spouse also kind of builds up. So there's a lot of things that kind of builds up in the background that's not often spoke about, right? Okay. And with things, going out in the whirlwind, there's not much time for connection. The constant demands, feeding, changing diapers, getting the logistics, going, right? and then handling work at the same time. And often everything got put first and the relationship got put the last. Because to me, it's like, I married this guy. We're going to be stuck together forever, right? Let's get other things handled, and the relationship can wait. You do miss each other, right? But then you love your baby at the same time. So there's this huge imbalance of how to handle priorities, right? So I think all this time just adds up. Not every couple go through this, because we have a friend, right? They have 3 kids, they have 2 helpers, and the baby sleeps at 7, right? Mine sleeps at 11. So it really differs, I guess, from
Yeah.
families to families, how things work out and what kind of support that we get, right? Okay. So just going on to the specific postpartum sexual challenges, there's the hormonal shift, right? Because when we are pregnant, we actually have tons of estrogens and progesterone that goes around. Okay, and this suddenly deep, after delivery, and that's where things starts to change, right? It affects the mood. For those of us who did, vaginal delivery, then there's the healing of the vagina. For those of us who had cesarean, there's also healing of the lower abdomen. So all these things that affect, us wanting to have sex, right? And of course, there's a fatigue. And then there's the tons of mental load, right? Whether the bottles are washed, has it been sterilized, the list goes on and on. Okay. And all these are challenging. So if you look at specifically, right, the hormones that we have is actually not very conducive for sex. Okay, why is that so? Because for humans to survive, a newborn bum can't be, let's go back to the caveman times, right? A mom who has a newborn can't possibly be going around still dating other men, right? So in order to ensure the survival of the baby, the sex drive has to drop. Okay, and it comes in the form of estrogen dropping, causing dryness and the mood swings. The progesterone drops, leading to emotional sensitivity and the feeling of overwhelm. The prolactin increase to support milk supply, but it also suppress libido. The oxytocin surges to improve the milk supply as well, right? But then it also increase our touch sensitivity. So all these things is how we are constructed to allow us to survive as a race.
Mhm.
Very interesting, right? Once we link it to evolution, right?
This is very interesting. I was also wondering, we are so loved out,
Mm-hmm.
our baby constantly being skin to skin with them, especially in the early days.
Yes.
I was wondering, and then oxytocin is also what we need in the sack, basically, the oxytocin rise. I experienced it myself, that you
Mm-hmm.
start leaking, breast milk while you're having sex. And that's all very weird and uncomfortable to many women, I would think.
It is. So all this, struggles are real. It's not because that, we can't do anything about it, because the body requires all these things to happen, to ensure that the baby is taken care of first before our pleasure as a woman,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
So
a lot of times I think in the modern days, we are having smaller and smaller nucleus family. And it's really a struggle, because in the past we used to have grandmothers, grand aunties, sisters, cousins, in the village to actually take care of babies together. Right? Now the nucleus family is just ourselves, or maybe at most a helper, or sometimes the mom drop in here and there, right? And the construct of the modern women is that we can handle everything.
yeah.
So unfortunately, I think we ask for help a lot lesser,
Mm-hmm.
right? And because these people don't stay with us anymore, they also cannot see that we need help when we need to. So I think modern moms, we struggle a lot, and the blues tend to be more prolonged with all this stressors that's come in. Like, we need to be able to make it. I've, come in top in school. I do really well at work. I manage a whole team. And now at home, I can't manage a baby. What's wrong with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all these thoughts just adds up to the whole postpartum recovery. And it makes recovery really, really challenging, right?
Mummies on the call, if you have any questions that are pertaining to the slide we're looking at or what Dr. Angela is talking about, please put them in the chat. We'd be happy to get your input or answer your questions.
Definitely. Right. Okay, and then more problems. I'm so sorry, but I'm just going to go through all the problems first before I come to the solutions, right? So in the vagina, there's the dryness due to the low estrogen, which can cause a lot of discomfort during sex. Elasticity changes. At the start, it may feel a little bit looser, but they do tighten up. So this is where we do encourage a visit to a pelvic floor physio, maybe, to get started of knowing your anatomy of the pelvic floor. Not just Kegels, there's a lot more exercises than Kegels. Kegels is just like the tip of the iceberg, right? That could be increased sensitivity due to the stitches or tearing and needs time to heal. And then the discharge, can last for 6 to 8 weeks. And then, of course, when you're discharging, you don't really want to have sex, right? And then it kind of just piles up from there. Okay, so what can we do? I think this is the important part. Everybody wants to hear out what can we actually do to solve all these challenges is upfront. Okay, so I think it's important, for us in this postpartum stage to redefine what exactly is intimacy. It has to go beyond just sex. Like these small moments of us holding our hands to our partner, doing shoulder rub, gentle kisses, right? It's important. And one of the things I think the couples that work with feel is that if I allow, for these small moments to happen, will my husband be anticipating sex? And if I reject him, wouldn't he feel even more disappointed? So therefore, I shouldn't even indulge in this little intimate moments so that he won't have the wrong idea that I'm ready.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that I have to sit down with the couples I work with to say that, hey, not every little moment is going to end up in sex. It's okay. Let's just talk about it. Right? Because these little moments are important to keep the gears being oiled and greased. If not, when all the oil dries up, you want to restart, it's going to be really, really hard. So it's okay. Like, let's establish this agreement that it doesn't mean that every time I give you a deep kiss, it has to end up in sex.
Yeah.
I'm just happy to do that kiss. The end.
And I think this is a very important first step that is a big hurdle for many people to actually talk about their needs and wants, not just in bed, but, every day, all day, every day, the hugs in between. And as you say, what are their expectations and what does that mean? And so on. So start talking is, I think, the first message.
Yes. Because in this talking, what we are sharing is our vulnerability. Okay, so if you go back to the fundamental of how trust is built, is that trust is built when you feel safe enough to be vulnerable with somebody, right? And the same thing, if you listen to your friend share about something that's vulnerable or sensitive, even though you cannot solve their problem, but naturally you feel closer to this person because you feel that they trust you, right? So sometimes it's just about simply listening and then the trust get built up, right? So this sharing is very important. Cannot emphasize more on that. Okay, and then emotional reconnection comes in other ways as well. So communication rituals. So it can be a simple, 5 minutes check-in at certain times of the day. Some people will find the start of the day works better. Some people in the middle, some at the end, right? So it depends on, everyone's routines, what is something important. And sometimes we don't need like no check-ins to be like an hour long. It's just a 5 minutes thing. And we can leave the an hour long conversations to another time where there is more space for that. So the an hour long conversation can happen once a week, once every 2 weeks. It doesn't have to be a daily thing, right? Okay, and then looking at just sharing about how each other has changed when you move from just a woman or a man into a mom and a dad role, how that has become, right? And knowing how to express your needs, like, I actually need this and I miss this about us, and appreciate that you're doing this. So all this sharing actually helps to rebuild the connections. Okay. And navigating all of this is a huge thing to navigate relationship dynamics because it used to be two and now there is three or four or five. And the transition from 2 to 3 is huge because it's not a +3. It's actually like 2 cube kind of thing, right? And things goes exponential. So it's important to recognize that there is a change, right? With a newborn coming in, how is the relationship changing? So instead of just relating to each other as lovers, you are also relating to each other as your baby's parent, and that changes things, right? Our needs change, right? Because, in the past, when I was dating, I was just quite happy, if my husband comes home, we have dinner like maybe twice or 3 times a week, that's fine. But after having the kid, I will want him to come home early every day so that I can get some breather. So the needs have changed, right? And we need to adapt and work together to create new patterns that work for both of us. Okay. And of course, there's going to be a lot of frustration that happens in the meantime. This express gently, that is really, really hard. It's not something that can be done overnight. It takes us a lot of practice to go like, hey, I'm feeling this. I'm not blaming you for it, but this is how I'm struggling. Can we talk about it? So these are just really, really guidelines. It's not something that going to happen overnight, but at least get people to start reflecting of what can be done in a more systemic manner. All right.
And I think this is actually, if you don't mind me
Go ahead, yes.
reflecting on needs, this for me is something that should be actually addressed before the baby even arrives. So we sometimes, that's a few years ago now, but we used to cover this in our antenatal classes as well, where we basically said, look at each other's timelines every day. What happens? When do you sleep? When do you eat? When do you exercise? All of these things. And then how is the timetable of your baby going to be? Needing to be fed every 2 hours and so on and so on. And sort of how can you make this work? Or what worries you the most? Like one mom would say, I cannot function without sleep, for example. So that was her main thing that she couldn't, she wanted to figure out and find a strategy so that she would still be well rested and things like that. But there might be other needs that you have.
Yes.
That you are worried about. So if we address these worries beforehand and come up with strategies before the baby is even born, then we have a plan in place rather than doing it when you, as we were saying earlier, when you're already stretched thin and tensions are rising and then everything just explodes. And that's what nobody wants and needs,
Yeah, but unfortunately, a lot of times we only realize that this is a need when it happens.
True.
Right? We always think that, it can be done. We can cope with it, we'll deal with it as it comes. But when it happens, it became an explosion.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a very trying times for new parents. So hopefully, as we bring more awareness about that, it's like, how then do you cope and not blame yourself or each other? I think that's more important.
Yeah.
It's going to be difficult. It's guaranteed. We can't escape the difficult challenges, but at least let's deal with it together. Right?
So we have someone responding to this. Where mom says she resonates with the fact that we only realize our needs when they're not being met. That is a very, very, very important thing to note. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So it's about also that setting up expectations like, hey, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how my needs will change. But if there's a change, let's have a safe space to talk about it and to voice it out.
I love what you're saying here because what I see a lot, and I've supported more than 400 couples just as a birth doula, but we see many more couples obviously in our antenatal classes and in the groups and so on. And what I find is we have this big goal ahead that is the having a baby. We want to have a baby, but we're not realizing that we are being transformed in such a major way that we are turning from a couple that is all, party and traveling and I don't know what, to now being a family where everything changes. Everything changes. And I feel a lot of people don't think about that beforehand. And they're hit by it like a ton of bricks to think, like, where have we gone? Like, where's the couple gone? Where's the fun gone? Everything is gone,
Yes, it does.
The priorities are so different now. So growing together as a couple and keeping the communication going is definitely a good thing because you're creating something beautiful here. I think we need to think about that. Yes, it's different, but it can be beautiful. So we need to just keep working at that.
Yes. I think we have this assumption because the way we look our parents and our friends deal with it is as though nothing happened. Everything just moved on with life, right? Nobody really talk about the struggles in the transition. We just kind of like deal with it and everything gets set under the carpet. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So how do you actually ease back? Okay, my biggest tip that I have for everyone today is to actually go slow. Right? There's no need to rush to resume the physical intimacy because the emotional intimacy builds up the fundamentals of it. Right? And it's important to redefine connection. What it is. It may not be what it used to be. With vagina dryness, feel free to use lubricants. Right? And then another part is the leaky breast. If you are actively breastfeeding, that can be quite in the way.
Yeah.
All right.
Was going to
So
ask
yes.
you, if you don't mind, I was going to ask you,
Yes.
I don't know how early people come to see you
Mm-hmm.
with their issues, but do you see a difference between moms who are breastfeeding and moms who are bottle feeding in terms of there being even their physical changes, right? Because the hormone levels are very different for a breastfeeding mom than they are for a bottle feeding mom.
Okay. So I don't have that many data to do A and B comparison. Okay, but I do find that for bottle feeding mom, they get into their routine faster,
Okay.
right? Because the baby can be passed on to somebody more readily
Yeah.
compared to those who are latching, especially, right? Where they still have like a newborn that is tagged to them most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Um, well, once the breastfeeding, so there was a very interesting case I heard from a friend of mine, right? Apparently, there's this mommy who said that, I'm starting to get migraines when I stop breastfeeding.
Okay.
All right. So apparently the hormones help to moderate and things like that, uh, to prevent headaches as well. So once the lady stopped breastfeeding, her past migraines attack seems to come in as well. So I guess it's really going to be very different for different people. How breastfeeding actually helps us in some ways and not help us in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
And have some women who are breastfeeding throughout and they have no issues with their vagina dryness. Things just goes on as per normal, right?
But is
So
there any yardstick on how the hormones are changing in a way that our vaginal dryness disappears, or, that our progesterone and estrogen levels are at an even kilter again as they were before pregnancy?
yeah, because usually after the first year of breastfeeding, the demand for breast milk actually drops,
Yeah.
right? And then the hormone starts to re-regulate itself. Okay. So that's where the dryness don't get so apparent anymore. Right. But if you're actively breastfeeding, especially the first 6 months, and the whole healing process and everything, the dryness is a bit more obvious. Yeah.
Got it.
Mm. But whether there's dryness or not, I always advise the couples that I work with to just have a bottle or tube or lubricant beside. Because whether you're dry or wet, adding the lubricant sometimes, even to other body parts, actually brings in more fun to the bedroom. So yeah, just have a bottle of lubricant there. No worries.
Absolutely. Do you have recommendations for lubricants that are
Yes.
better than others? Or, I mean, I know that there's water-based and there's oil-based and all of that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Many moms are worried about chemicals in these as well, so they want something more natural, maybe. What are your favorites?
Okay. There are definitely organic based lubricants that's available online, not from the stores in Singapore. Right? Generally, I prefer water-based lubricants over the silicone ones. So the silicone ones are oily, and it's like I have to wash the sheets after everything else. That's the last thing I want to do. So I find the silicone ones not very friendly for cleaning up.
Yeah, okay.
Right? The water-based one, the usual ones that we get off the racks, I find them they dry up too fast, and it causes even more dryness. So something that I do like is this brand called Liquid Silk.
You will have to send me all the names for this as well, so I can
Sure,
put them
sure.
under the liquid silk.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, this is actually a product from the UK,
Uh-huh.
right? It is paraben free, right? And I like it because it lasts a lot longer.
Mhm.
Okay, but yet it doesn't leave the greasy feeling behind. It's just like a hand moisturizer kind
Yeah.
of feeling. Um, It is, there's no scent to it.
I like that it has a pump as well,
Yes.
because it's much easier to operate. Thinking about using condoms, that's a different one as well. So not all lubricants are compatible with that, is what one participant said.
Yes. So this one is condom friendly, is sex toys friendly because it's non-silicone based. It's
Okay.
actually water based, but then they add in other stuff that make it more slippery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with the brand, also from the UK, that's called Yes, Yes, Yes.
Mm.
Have you got any experience with that?
I haven't used it because it's not really available in Singapore. Right. Another brand that I'm trying out is a German brand called Peugeot. So I'm going to test it out to see how it compares with liquid silk. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll share mine with you as well. I have a German brand as well, and Yes, Yes, Yes was recommended to me by a physio, and they actually ship to Singapore as well, so that's not an issue.
Yeah, so there's actually a few brands around.
Yeah, in the group later, if you're up for it, feel free to share your favorite brands as well.
Yes, happy to see that. Okay, so in terms of this is lubricant. So in terms of moisturizer, I actually have something else, right? This is the moisturizer that I recommend for my breastfeeding clients and my perimenopausal and menopausal clients. So this is how it looks like. Um, so what I liked about it is that is the sharing still there?
Yes, yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, because I thought it saw that it's paused. Right. So what I liked about it is it doesn't contain any hormones, right? It comes in a stick format like you can see on the picture. Okay. And then I'm just going to stop sharing so that I can show you the whole tube in the full screen.
Yeah, that would be great. So,
Right.
what is just before we delve into that, what is your definition for different application for moisturizer versus lubricant?
Okay, so lubricant is more for during sexual activities, right? Moisturizer if you feel dry. So dryness comes in different ways. Sometimes you just feel dry, but more often than not, it comes as a form of an itch and discomfort,
Mm-hmm.
right? And postpartum ladies can get kind of symptoms as well as the perimenopausal or menopausal, or if you're only on any drugs that influence the hormones, the whole vulva area can actually feel dry and itchy. So that's where we'll recommend regular moisturizers over just lubricants. Lubricants is just during sexual activities.
Okay. And we are all talking about not postpartum, but actually moisturizers and so on can also be super helpful in pregnancy as well. Because we have a lot of moms who experience dryness there as well. There's a lot of sex drive, like lots of libido, some people in pregnancy, but the dryness is not very conducive to actually having sexual intercourse.
Yeah. So if you find that the dryness is more persistent, I'll recommend daily moisturizers, right? And then on top of that, lubricants. So I've tried a few brands of moisturizers, and this has become my favorite for now.
Right.
Simply because this is conical in shape and it has a dilatation function. So with the dryness, what happens is sometimes the entrance also clamps up. Right. So with this, you kind of just do dilatation at the same time.
Okay.
Right. So it's really slippery once you wet it because it's made out of glycerin, the one that you use for jellies, right? Really soft.
Mm-hmm. But you put it underwater first.
Yes.
And then, okay.
Then you have to activate it. So once it's under the water, it's very slippery. It slides in very easily.
Yeah.
And then you do your Kegels at the same time.
Okay.
So it's quite I say versatile equipment for me.
Yeah.
It contains hyaluronic acid as number one active ingredient. So it's as though you're applying a face mask to your vulva and your vagina.
Perfect.
Right. So I find it more versatile than moisturizers. But if you're just doing for moisturizing function, there's a few brand like Replens, Luvina that actually just moisturize the vulva as well as the vaginal walls. If you're looking for something to double up as Kegels plus moisturize, I would say this is something useful.
Also, this is super easy to apply. I would
Yes.
much better than using a tube and unscrewing it and putting it on. And yeah, anyway,
And we just do it in the shower. So because it activates with water. So I say just yes, this moisturizer can be used during pregnancy because there is no chemicals involved. If I were to read out to you the ingredients list, essentially is water, glycerin, vitamin B, gum that holds the thing together. There's lactic acid, there's potassium, there's sodium benzoate, there's hyaluronic acid. No, that's pretty much about it.
yeah, perfect. And can you also talk about, so pregnancy, it's safe. At what stage postpartum would you be starting to use these lubricants? Are we waiting for the cervix to be fully closed or?
Generally to prevent the mess, we'll say, after your local has kind of like thin out,
Yeah,
little left, then you can start working with the sticks because the sticks are reusable for 2 weeks.
yeah.
So in order to maintain the hygiene, we'll say, after you have cleaned up, then you kind of like start. So in between, if you want to just use moisturizers, because moisturizers, the applicators tends to be a once-off use,
Mhm.
right? That will be a better option.
Okay.
Mm.
Sorry, I had another question. I forgot about it. Oh, and so this product, what is it called again? The comb?
It's called Aquafit Pre.
Free. Is that available only in your clinic, or is that something we can buy online as well?
Currently, it's available in my clinic.
Mhm.
If you're buying online, it'll be shipped from Europe, actually.
Okay.
Yeah,
I can build a new business bringing in lubricants and moisturizers.
definitely, definitely.
Okay, great. So we've seen that. Condoms, I'm just keeping an eye on the chat. Okay.
Okay, so the other part that I wanted to cover was the leaky breast.
Hmm.
So let me get to my slides again. Hang on. Are we on the leaky breast? Okay, like that. Right. So leaky breast is gonna be common because oxytocin is released during an orgasm. So it's gonna be really, really awkward, when you're having a good orgasm, then suddenly the milk out, can be very stressful for some couples, right? And then let's say you're making out and then the baby cries, it can also cause leaking. Okay, thinking about the baby can also activate a letdown, and of course, definitely engorgement. So these are the major triggers that cause the breast to be even more leaky. So knowing that these are the things, then how do we actually avoid it, right? So main thing, if you're concerned, have quality breast pads, right? Talk with your partner, normalize the leaks. Like leaks is just part and parcel of this new normal. It's okay,
Yeah.
right? Reduce the pressure so you can pump or just do hand express a little bit before things get more intense in the bedroom. And one of the couples that I work with actually shares with me something that work for them is like, if it's a bit leaking, the husband just heads over, and lick it up.
Okay.
And it's become like part of their foreplay. And fresh milk is actually sweet. Unlike those that you kind of put in the fridge that has this, soury smell.
The
So
soap kind of, yeah.
yeah. So that couple that I work with, I was so amazed by how open the husband was about like, yeah, just lick it up. No, there's no big deal.
Yeah. I don't think every husband will feel like that. It's very individual.
Yeah. But then it's these stories that you go like saying that then it starts to shift the mind of men, right? If one man can do it, so can I, right? Because then you kind of like, play a bit with the male ego.
Absolutely.
um So I think, yes, having that open conversation to normalize leaks, and this is where both people get comfortable with it, right? And not to make it like shameful, like this is my fault that I'm leaking kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and of course there's the emotional side of the leak, right? Then you go and look like, okay, I'm actually a mom now. I'm supposed to be, providing care for my baby. but yet, I'm having my pleasure time. Am I doing it right? Okay, and with this blicky breast, we do feel less sexy, and then the embarrassment that we talked about, right? And then the nice little thing is about us being able to appreciate our bodies, to remember that our body is doing incredible things, from conceiving to keeping the baby with us for 9 months, delivering, and now this body is then producing the milk so that our babies can thrive. So there's also conversations that I have with my clients to work with appreciating themselves, right? And that's that, right?
Um,
Yeah. So Joanna, any questions you have?
yeah, first of all, I want to ask the mummies if there are any questions. So let me know. You can absolutely speak to Dr. Angela directly if you would like. So put it
Yes, directly is here. This is my website, my LinkedIn, my email.
just now as well, but thank you for sharing this because for moms watching this at a later stage, and I know that there will be many, this is and actually not just moms. We also invite their partners to reach out to you because this is not a one-sided thing. It takes two to tango, as we always say. I think one thing that comes up for me is body image, and I know we're all different, but a lot of us have body image issues, even in a non-pregnant state,
Yes.
but then postpartum especially, and then even with changing hormones later in life and perimenopause and so on. What do we do for that? Like often the hindrance in the bedroom, the first hurdle is that I don't feel super sexy today, because I've been with this baby the whole day. My hair is a mess. I know my partner sees me very differently, but it's very difficult to shake that. Do you have any specific tips for that?
Okay, quick tips as really hard
Okay.
because it's a long drawn problem, right? Um, what I do is actually I work with my clients to look at what is going on, like what about their bodies or themselves that makes them not like it. And then we do healing from there. It's actually a healing process.
Yeah.
Okay. And the healing comes with the negative experience that they had when they were not good enough, whether the physical body or their ability to pull off something, right? With those healing of the parts that we felt that are not good enough, we slowly start to learn that, hey, actually, I'm good enough. And then
Mhm.
this is where we add in the layer of appreciation, right? Yes, as much as I have a flabby tummy now, but this is the home of my baby for the last 5 months, 9 months, right? Yes, I have flabby arms now, but this is the arms, that carry my baby to sleep every night, right? Yes, my hair is in a mess now, right? But this is also the hair the little hands tug at when she stares at me. Can you see that reframing?
Absolutely. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So I do that quite a lot, the healing and then the reframing, and that helps to rebuild the confidence a woman ought to have in herself.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Ladies, I think it's only ladies today on the call.
Sure.
Anyway, no questions yet. That's okay.
Okay, no worries. I got some entertaining things that I put on the side in case I have time. Right. So this is a model of the vulva, right? So one of the things, okay, so those online, I guess that everybody knows that this is the tip of the clitoris, but I'm just gonna flip to the back side of this model and show you,
Yeah.
right? This is how the clitoris actually looks like as a whole. Right?
Yeah.
A lot bigger than just this little knob that we see in front. So when it comes to pleasure, right, make use of the whole area. Okay, so have fun with the whole vulva region, all right? Not just the penetrative part, not just playing with the clitoris glands, right? The whole area is the stimulation zones. And this is where the fun parts comes in because I'm going to show you 3 of my favorite toys.
Mhm.
Um,
Amazing. Can I just say also, because you just reminded me, we also have to think about sex doesn't always equal penetration.
Mhm,
We can make love in many different ways. And
mhm.
I think that's important to notice, especially when we say, let's go slow. I've just had a baby come out of this orifice of mine. Maybe we can start slow and do things in a different way this time. So, ease into it kind of thing.
Yeah. So the three favorites I'm going to like share with everyone today. None of them is penetrative, but they have received very good feedbacks from those who have owned them.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? So this little thing here that you see
Okay.
looks like an electric toothbrush.
Okay.
All right, it's actually a vibrator. So once you on it, I mean, it's hard to show you online, but once you on it,
Yeah.
it's very sensual because the tip is very pointy. So
Hmm.
instead of the usual vibrators that are pretty chunky, this fine tip actually creates a very sensual feelings um throughout the whole body.
Okay.
So I recommend this as part of the foreplay warm up, right? Getting the tingling sensations in little parts here and there, creating more fun for both partners,
Yeah.
right? It's quite fun. So one of the feedback that I received that is that coupling a vibrator with a blow job for your partner actually increases the sensation of the blow job by a few times,
Okay.
right? So just for fun. All right. Oh, thank you, Lily, for saying. I'll see you around soon, I guess. Another one, this is a pretty rose.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Okay, so what it does is that it vibrates and protrudes like that. I'm gonna remove the top so that you can see.
Oh, okay.
All right. So this create a very focal sensation on the clitoris as well. And I like it because it's pretty.
Yeah. You can even have that standing in the living room and nobody would be.
Yeah. Yeah,
Nice.
it's very nice decorative item. Um, the other one that some of my clients like is this thing. It's a clitoris sucker,
Okay.
right? So you have to feel the pressure right inside if you put it right in there, and it has a warming effect. So it creates a bunch of different sensation on the clitoris glands.
Yeah.
All this are great toys for the whole body that doesn't require penetration.
Amazing. So is that something you recommend that a mom start out by sort of exploring herself a little bit more? And is self-pleasuring part of this road to intimacy?
Definitely, if you're open, right?
I'm just asking, can that be helpful? Or
Yes.
in a way, because then I'm satisfied and then my partner is sitting on the couch and he gets nothing. Sorry, just
It depends because sometimes, you have a quick breather, your husband is at work, right? The baby's asleep, and you have a nice little window. So just get on with it.
excellent. There's something in there. How easy is it actually to find these sex toys or tools or whatever you want to call them in Singapore? Is that something that is widely available?
Oh, yeah. So sex toys, right? I mean this one, the very pretty ones, and this one come from this toy shop called Hedonist, right?
Okay.
They're a curated sex toy shop. So they do a lot of education as well.
Yeah.
The biggest e-commerce sex toy shop in Singapore is called horny.sg.
Horny.
Yes, a very apt name.
Yeah.
They deliver in 2 hours if you want it. Yeah, so it's pretty easy on the e-commerce site to actually get sex toys in Singapore.
Got it. Okay. So that's not something that is prohibited or in any way.
No, it's fine.
Okay. I had no idea. So, yeah, I wanted to mention something that I am enjoying a lot.
Hmm.
And this is not going to be too much information, don't worry. It's an Instagram account that I really appreciate. And it's a woman called Lauren O'Hayon who's done a lot of work in the pelvic floor space. And she has so much content on Instagram for reconnecting with your pelvic floor, finding pleasure again, making everything nice and supple, and so on. I urge you to check it out because, I'm talking to the mummies now. because this is, for me, this has been she's so educational and she's offering so much stuff completely for free. She's been shut down a few times because her content was too explicit and things like that as well. So that's always tricky, but she's got a wealth of knowledge to share with you. And like you were saying earlier, it's not just about Kegels. There's
Mhm.
so much more that we can do for our pelvic floor, and taking care of your pelvic floor is not just so you're not incontinent and pee yourself while you're sneezing, but it will also increase your sexual pleasure in a major way. So
Mhm.
I think we should all be continuously work on our pelvic floor is what I'm trying to say, to gain more elasticity. And I think that this helps with lubrication as well, too, and changing hormones and so on. So yeah, so I'll share not her contact, but her Instagram handle later with you as well, because I think you'll find a lot of good information there. Have you got any resources or Instagram, TikTok, whatever people use these days, because I'm a dinosaur, that you particularly like or recommend to people?
I'm not an Instagram user, but yes, I do see quite a few good pelvic floor
Yeah.
therapists online nowadays.
Mhm.
They do very good job. A website that I see is called the Pelvic People. They
Okay.
come up with quite a fair bit of pelvic floor videos as well,
Okay, great.
right?
And for intimacy, and so on, is there something else out there as well?
Um,
Do you have content on your website that you're sharing?
I'm still building, so it's still all over the place, right? I mean, yeah. There's this particular subscription called OMG Yes,
Okay.
right? That I personally liked a lot. Because it actually shows real women masturbating,
Oh, wow. Okay.
and it's not porn at all.
Yeah.
Like it's not porny at all. So, they actually share about what turns them on, how their body work,
Interesting.
right? And then they have some clips where they actually show how a woman touch themselves.
Yeah.
They also have tips when it comes to couple play, like how what works for them,
Hmm.
right? So I thought those are very, very real stories, and it got us to see how female pleasure is actually very different from the what is being portrayed on porn.
Yes.
So I love that as an education site,
We see that.
where women and men can understand more about how women actually works.
Yeah. And I guess we all have a different upbringing and sex and talking about sex and all of that and pleasure in general is so different as well. And for in many cultures, it's all families because it's not just about the culture. It's very individual too. In many families, this is such a taboo. And
Yeah.
we never talk about this with our cousins and our grandparents or mothers even,
Yeah.
so it's good that we start talking about it and that there are resources for moms who want to explore this a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, exposed, or if they want to rediscover their sexuality as well. So it's great that there's resources out there. So I'll contact you later to get all the details from
Yeah.
you. So I can put them under the YouTube video as well, and then mummies can look at that later. If there are no questions from the mummies or parents on the chat, then we'll leave it here. But thank you so much, Angela, for coming this morning and sharing your morning with us. Very educational. I'm hoping that moms and parents and their partners will get lots out of it, even when they're watching it at a later stage. And yeah, I'm really appreciative. Uh,
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I struggle with this, so I just hope that whatever I can share can reduce some of the struggles that other parents will have.
Yeah, perfect. And then, I can only encourage you parents, go out there. Dr. Angela is in Chuchiat Road, very easy to reach. And maybe a first step is go alone if that's your thing. If your partner is not yet on board, just start having these conversations, and then I'm sure she can help you with useful tips to bring your partners on board as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I hope you all have a wonderful morning, and we'll see you again soon.
Okay, see you. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.